Why do narcissists get married so fast and leave when you need them most? He proposed after just 6 weeks. He said he'd never felt this way before. It was like a fairy tale. Until it wasn't. He disappeared 3 months after the wedding. No explanation. No closure. Just silence. And the worst part? She still blamed herself. If you're watching this, maybe you've asked the same thing. Why did they rush into marrying me, just to vanish when I needed them the most? People talk about red flags. But covert narcissists don't wave red flags. They wrap them in roses, promises, and just enough vulnerability to disarm you. They don't love bomb you to love you. They do it to lock you in, emotionally, legally, sometimes even financially, before you start asking questions. Questions like, why do they get angry when I cry? Why do I feel lonelier with them than I did alone? Why do I keep apologizing for how I feel? In this video, we're going to unpack why narcissists move so fast into marriage, the psychological mechanics behind emotional abuse, how you slowly get conditioned to stay, even when everything in you wants to run, and how to begin healing, gently but powerfully. Comment fire if you've ever been told you were too sensitive by someone who hurt you, and stick around till the end, because I'll share the exact emotional regulation technique I used to reclaim my clarity after a narcissistic breakup. Let's begin. On the outside, they seem like the perfect partner. Charming. Attentive. Passionate. They say all the right things. But deep down, something always felt off. That's not just your intuition. That's conditioning. When someone has traits of narcissistic personality disorder, they often see relationships not as connection, but as control. Marriage, to them, isn't about love. It's about locking in supply. They move fast, not because they just know, but because they want to secure emotional access to you before you notice the truth. Before you spot the covert narcissist signs. They interrupt your pain with their own. They disappear in moments you need them most. They confuse you with mixed signals and subtle devaluations. They claim you're too emotional, right after they triggered your tears. And once you're locked in, it shifts. Suddenly, your tone is too much. Your tears are manipulative. Your memories are wrong. You start second-guessing your own emotions. That's not love. That's gaslighting. I never said that. You're making things up again. You're just being dramatic. Sound familiar? Gaslighting isn't just manipulation, it's a tactic that rewires your reality. It teaches you to doubt what you feel, see, and know. And the worst part? You start apologizing for sensing the truth. This is why people in toxic relationships often say, it wasn't always bad. They weren't always like this. Maybe it's just me. But it's not just you. It's the loop they built, and the cycle they're feeding on. They marry fast, not because they want to cherish you, but because they want to own the version of you that still believes this is love. In the next segment, we'll talk about what this looks like up close. The real-life examples of emotional abuse that don't leave bruises, but leave cracks in your sense of self. If you're nodding right now, keep going. You're not alone. And it's not too late to name what happened. He never hit me. He never screamed at me. But somehow, I lost myself. This is the sentence I hear most from women who survived emotional abuse. Because when there are no bruises, you start to wonder if the pain is even valid. Let's make it clear. Emotional abuse is real. And it's devastating. Not because it's loud, but because it's invisible and consistent. Here are some real-life emotional abuse examples you might recognize. You cry, and they walk out of the room. You try to share your feelings, and they say, "Here we go again." You set a boundary, and suddenly, they become cold and withdrawn. You get the silent treatment for hours. Sometimes days. They twist what you said, and make you the villain in every story. That's not conflict. That's not communication issues. That's conditioning. And when you're in it for long enough, your nervous system stops asking, "Is this love?" It starts asking, "How can I not upset them today?" That's relationship trauma. Not the kind that breaks bones, but the kind that breaks your ability to trust your own emotions. This is why so many survivors struggle to leave. Because you're not just walking away from a person. You're trying to unlearn an entire system of self-blame, fear, and performance. It took me years to understand what was happening. And even longer, to stop blaming myself. The truth? Emotional abuse thrives where emotional regulation is missing. It feeds on your triggers. It hijacks your boundaries. And it rewards silence with temporary peace. That's why the healing journey isn't just about leaving. It's about learning how to reconnect with your own emotional regulation skills. The ability to feel safe and respond clearly. Because if you don't feel safe to feel, you will always feel unsafe to leave. Up next, I'll share the exact moment of clarity I had. The one sentence that shattered the cycle and woke me up from the loop. They didn't marry you because they love you. They married you because they didn't want to lose access to you. That's segment 4. Clarity's coming. He didn't marry me because he loved me. He married me because he didn't want anyone else to. That sentence hit me like a wave. And it wasn't from a therapist. It came from a survivor, just like you, just like me. Because with narcissists, especially covert ones, marriage is not a love story. It's a power play. It's a strategy. If I marry her, she'll stay. If I give her the title, I get the access. They didn't commit to grow. They committed to keeping you available. To ensure your body stayed even when your soul began to shrink. And the more attached you became, the less responsible they felt. Let me be clear. Getting married does not mean they ever planned to stay. It means they wanted you to stay, without needing to earn your presence. So when you cried and begged, when you overfunctioned and underexpressed, when you stayed longer than you should have, you weren't weak. You were conditioned. You were trauma bonded. You were surviving. And when you finally considered leaving, they flipped. Suddenly. Let's work this out. We should try therapy. Let's have a baby. Anything to buy more time. Not to heal, but to hold you in place. This is where the silent part of abuse becomes loud inside your body. Chest tightness for no reason. Flinching when your phone lights up. Checking your tone 3 times before you speak. Feeling guilty for feeling anything. This isn't drama. This is survival mode inside a false commitment. And sometimes, the most healing move is not a conversation. It's a consultation. There is no shame in Googling divorce lawyer near me. There is no guilt in calling a domestic violence attorney. Even if there was never a bruise. Because some of the deepest wounds, they are the ones nobody else can see. Next, in segment 5, we begin the rebuilding. The moment you stop trying to fix them and start learning how to come back to you. Let's go there together. They didn't destroy you. They disconnected you from yourself. And that's where the recovery begins. Not with fixing them. Not with figuring them out. But with the slow, sacred process of coming back to your own nervous system. You might wake up and still feel them in the room. You might replay old conversations like emotional reruns. Was it really abuse? What if I triggered them? What if they actually changed now? That's not a doubt. That's trauma trying to make sense of betrayal. The truth is, healing from narcissistic abuse isn't linear. It's not a single choice. It's 1,000 small ones. Like saying no and not apologizing. Leaving texts unread. Crying without judging yourself. Booking your first session with someone trained in narcissistic abuse recovery. That's where people find help. Not just with any therapist, but with those who specialize in emotional manipulation. Or even better, work with a narcissistic abuse recovery coach who's walked the path. Sometimes, the safest way to start is anonymous. That's why online therapy platforms became a lifeline for so many survivors. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to be ready. You just need someone who gets it. If anxiety still lives in your chest, if you flinch at kindness, if you panic when things feel calm, you're not broken. You're deprogramming. That's where anxiety online treatment can help. Not to numb your feelings, but to teach you how to feel safe again. And if the first therapist didn't help, try again. The best online therapy platforms for therapists are not there to judge you. They're there to remind you that your healing doesn't need permission. It just needs consistency. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't look like revenge or rebounds. It looks like peace. And peace feels awkward at first when you've been addicted to chaos. But peace is your birthright. Not a reward. Not a gift. Just something that starts the moment you stop asking permission to feel good again. Coming up. Segment 6, Gentle, Practical Tools You Can Start Today. Journaling, boundaries, and emotional regulation. Let's ground this healing into something real. You don't rebuild your life in one big, brave moment. You rebuild it in 100 tiny choices no one else sees. And when you've survived emotional abuse, those tiny choices matter more than ever. Here are 3 practices that changed everything for me. And might just open a door for you, too. 1. Emotional journaling, name it to claim it. Every morning, before the world could touch me, I wrote down 5 sentences. What I feel. Where I feel it. Who it's attached to. Whether it's from now or the past. One thing I can do today to self-soothe. This simple habit taught me something powerful. My feelings aren't the enemy. Suppressing them was. If you've ever tried journaling during your healing journey, drop a memo in the comments, I'd love to know. 2. Boundary rehearsals, practice saying no in safe spaces. When you've been gaslit and guilt for years, saying no feels like violence. That's why it's crucial to retrain your nervous system to experience no as self-respect, not rejection. I practiced in front of a mirror. I practiced with friends I trusted. Because every time you honor a boundary, you teach your body it's safe to have needs again. Comment yes below if you're ready to honor yourself even when it feels scary. 3. Emotional regulation skills, anchor before you answer. If you want one superpower that will change your healing, learn emotional regulation skills. Breathe before you react. Pause before you explain. Ground before you defend. Because clarity lives on the other side of calm. And yes, it's okay to get support for this. Mental health isn't a DIY project. A lot of survivors feel like they have to heal themselves alone. You don't. Platforms like online therapy exist because healing is relational. Because sometimes, all it takes is one safe person to remind you that you are not crazy. You are not too much. You are simply someone who needed protection and never got it until now. If anxiety feels stuck in your chest, if the idea of trust feels laughable, there are anxiety online treatment options that meet you where you are. Quietly. Privately. Powerfully. You don't have to shout your pain to start healing it. You just have to be willing to listen to it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share one final truth. The one realization that closed the loop for me. And might just close it for you too. Comment ready if you're staying till the end. Because this next part isn't about them anymore. It's about you. And you deserve to hear it. You thought that marriage would protect you. That once they chose you, they'd see your heart and stay. But all it did was give them a license to stop trying. They didn't want a partner. They wanted access. Access to your softness. your empathy, your silence. And when you stopped being easy to manipulate, they stopped pretending to care. That's not your failure. That's their pattern. You were never too much. You were simply too aware. And awareness always threatens control. So now, the question is not, why did they leave? The real question is, why are you still holding space for someone who was never really there? If this story sounds like yours, you're not alone. And you're not crazy. You might just be someone who's still recovering from love that looked like connection, but felt like survival. And if your mind is spiraling right now, if your heart is whispering that something's still not safe, maybe it's time to stop Googling how to fix a toxic relationship and start Googling divorce lawyer near me. Or maybe you just want someone who actually gets it. Not someone who asks, why didn't you leave? But someone who asks, how did you stay so strong for so long? That's when some women find a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. Or call a domestic violence attorney, even when there are no bruises. Because emotional wounds are valid, too. And your clarity deserves legal and emotional protection. Healing isn't about hate. It's not about fighting. It's about finally choosing yourself. And that's not selfish. That's mental health. So if you've made it this far, you're already doing the hardest part. Letting the truth sink deeper than their denial. If this spoke to something inside you, comment clarity. Not for me. For you. So the next time doubt knocks, you'll remember. You saw it. You named it. And you're not going back.